Each of you are going to be assigned a board. And on this board, you're going to have to know all the parts of this board before you can even start wiring your projects. I'm going to ask you about the different boxes. Then I'm going to ask you about the conduits, the connectors, the miscellaneous parts, and then the screws. You need to know everything on this board before you can get the materials to wire it. Okay, first I'm going to quiz you on your boxes. In your upper left-hand corner here, you have a standard 4S box. It's called the 4S box because it's 4 inches square and it's just got a standard depth. The next box here is also a 4S box, but this is a 4S box with flat bracket. The next box we have here is a 4S deep special. What makes this box special isn't the fact that it's deep, it's because it has 1/2 and 3/4 inch knockouts. Any box with 1/2 and 3/4 inch knockouts is a special. So this is a 4S deep because it's deeper than the standard box, special. Down here we have a 4S special. How do I know it's special? It's got 1/2 and 3/4 inch knockouts. Coming over to this box, this is what we call a handy box. H-A-N-D-Y, like handyman, the handy box. Down here, we have a standard 4S box. Here we have a 4S box with flat brackets. Now remember, some of your boards are going to be different. This may be a special box, so you got to be on the lookout for the 1/2 and 3/4 inch KOs. This is just a 4S box with flat bracket. And last box we have here is another 4S box. Okay, once you have successfully told me what each of the boxes are, then I'm going to ask you about the conduits. And with the conduits, you have to tell me the size and the type of conduit. This first conduit here is 1/2 inch aluminum flex. This next conduit here, most of you probably think that as PVC. But in the electrical trade, this is called rigid non-metallic conduit. In its name, or RNC. Here we have rigid metallic conduit, 1/2 inch steel flex, and 1/2 inch electrical non-metallic tubing, or ENT. This is also known as Smurf flex because of its blue coloring. The last conduit we have are these small conduits here and down here. That is EMT, electrical metallic tubing. So one more time, 1/2 inch aluminum flex, 1/2 inch rigid non-metallic conduit, 1/2 inch rigid metallic conduit, 1/2 inch steel flex, 1/2 inch electrical non-metallic tubing, and 1/2 inch electrical metallic tubing. Okay, once you've completed the boxes and the conduits, you need to tell me what the connectors are. The first one here is a 1/2 inch flex connector. It's really hard to tell because you don't see much of it, but this is what a 1/2 inch flex connector looks like. Next we have a 1/2 inch RNC male adapter, rigid non-metallic conduit male adapter. Up here we have a 1/2 inch EMT set screw connector. All your connectors are 1/2 inch. Over here we have a 1/2 inch ENT male adapter, electrical non-metallic tubing male adapter. Then down here at the center we have a 1/2 inch rigid threadless connector. And even though this looks similar down here to the rigid threadless, this is EMT in there. This is called a 1/2 inch EMT compression connector, or a rain tight connector. But we'll call this a compression connector in the class. 1/2 inch EMT compression connector. Okay, once you've successfully told me what the conduits, the connectors, and the boxes are, next we have some miscellaneous parts that don't fall into those categories. First, right here, we have what's called a 1/2 inch chase nipple. And on the chase nipple, you see this ring, and you actually see that ring on all the connectors. That is called a lock nut. And it looks like this. This is a 1/2 inch lock nut. Then up here, this is a 1/2 inch offset nipple. Moving up a little further, right on here, that is a grounding clip, and that is used to ground your wire to a box. And this is what a grounding clip looks like. Over here, we have a KO seal. This is a 1/2 inch KO seal. We use that to seal up a KO in a box when we no longer want to have that open. It's just a little plug like this that you hammer into the hole and it seals the KO. Hence we call it a KO seal. Up here we have a 1/2 inch plastic bushing. And we use the plastic bushing on rigid to protect our wires so it doesn't get cut. And lastly, on the miscellaneous parts is right here. It's kind of hard to see, but that's a 3/4 to 1/2 inch reducing washer. It looks like this. You use 2 of these, one on one side of the box, one on the other side of the box, and it reduces a 3/4 inch KO down to a 1/2 inch. Okay, once you've told me the boxes, the conduits, the connectors, and the miscellaneous parts, I'm going to ask you about the screws that are on your board. Each of your 4S boxes has screws on a diagonal to each other. This is called an 832 round head machine screw. 8 is the size of the screw, 32 is the threads per inch. So this is an 832 round head machine screw. Coming down here to the handy box, this is a 632 flathead machine screw. Then moving down to your first box, you should have a green screw in there. That is a 1032 hex head grounding screw. And the last screw are the screws that are mounting your boxes to the board. And that is a number 10 pan head sheet metal screw. Once you've answered all of the questions correctly and gotten through your board with all the parts, then you're able to get your switches, switch rings, and everything you need to wire your projects.